G'day, g'day. NotJah Witness here with a very, very special guest, former Scientologist Chris Shelton. How you doing, mate?
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Not at all.
I've yeah, yeah, it's good to be here.
Thank you. Now, for those who don't know, you were raised in the group for over 20 years, I believe it was, or 25 years, somewhere there. You left in
Yeah.
2013, and
Hmm.
since then you've pretty much been vigorously working against Scientologists, or Scientology, I should say. And you've even assisted, if I'm not wrong, in one of the episodes of Leah Remini's Scientology in the Aftermath. Is that correct? That's what IMDb tells
All of
me. Yeah. That is
all
awesome.
all of those things are correct. Yes, I was raised as a second generation Scientologist. My parents got involved when I was about 4, and I became a active participant in the church myself when I was 15, and I started working for it when I was 17, right out of high school, and I continued doing that until I was 42 years old. In 2012, I got out of the working for the church, and in 2013, I got out of the church entirely, and it's
Okay,
been quite a wild ride.
fantastic. Obviously, everyone can probably see, or hopefully see, that we also have the lovely Nadine here. She's our side chat moderator, so if you do have any questions for Chris, make sure to tag Nadine in them, just to ensure they're caught, and hopefully we'll ask them at the end. So today I
Okie
really
dokie.
wanted, yee, I wanted to basically have just an open discussion about similarities between the two groups, obviously Scientology and Jehovah's Witnesses, in the sense that they are control groups of people and how to reach them, basically. So for a start, one thing I've noticed is that Jehovah's Witnesses will often see Scientology as a cult while they are completely blind to the possible similarities between the groups. And I was wondering if this is something similar with Scientology. Do they look at witnesses or other religions in that way that, oh, they're a cult, but we're not? Is that something that is common?
It is. It's a common characteristic of all destructive cults, and in fact, not just destructive cults. We're all biased toward our own group. But when it comes to other religious groups, Scientology's position is basically they are the only ones who have any line to anything remotely like the truth. And so everyone else obviously is getting it wrong. So they don't really pay a lot of attention to the specific practices or beliefs of other religions because Scientologists just don't care. They
They're not
might
even
have
interested.
some experience from before they became Scientologists with other religious groups or come into Scientology as a Christian or something like that, but they tend to drop those things before and just let Scientology take over their life.
Okay. Well, because that's obviously interesting. A lot of the first thing people will hear about Scientology from somebody in, or they'll be like, it's not a church. You can come in with any faith, and that's okay. So that is kind of true, but it's that at some point they will sort of lose that and, follow through with Scientology instead, or it'll take over.
Oh, yeah. No, they don't say it's not a church. They say that it's non-denominational.
Uh,
So there's kind of a big difference there. Scientology is all about being a church, but they just say that you can be a Scientologist and you can be a Christian too. And at the beginning, that works out okay. Nobody's giving you a lot of pressure. Nobody's particularly ragging on you about your other religious practices or something. But gradually, the more you get involved in Scientology and the more you get into the Scientology mindset and social circles, then you'll start feeling little hints and pressures, and you'll start encountering critical remarks about Christianity or religion in general in L. Ron Hubbard's lectures and in his writings. And that's what starts getting you doing the double thinking. Well, gee, maybe Christianity doesn't have all the answers, and Scientology does, and so therefore, and then you start kind of moving away from those other religious beliefs.
ah, okay. That is very interesting because I mean, obviously that's just very different to most most other religions I'd be familiar with, where you're, you know, to go in, you got to give up your old one. You know, like you got to fully commit from the get-go.
Yeah, no, they don't do that, and it's smarter of them not to do that, because then they get more members, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But it also speaks to the religiosity of Scientology. It's not a religion. I mean, let's just be blunt. It's one, it's a destructive cult, and two, it's a scam. It's a business scam that hides itself as a religion. It uses religious cloaking. So that's a very different thing from what the Jehovah's Witnesses are, I would say. And there's a lot of arguments about this and a lot of conversation to have about it, because it's not easy to just dismiss Scientology's religiosity. And for some people, they think all religions are destructive cults, which isn't true either. But that's what they think, or they think that at least all religions are cults. You know, they're all cults. You get this out of atheists and stuff. And I'm an atheist, so I get to say that.
Yeah.
But, that's the kind of thing you get when you put this out there. So it's kind of a nuanced conversation, really. But I'm just kind of putting that out there. Just go, hey, it's Scientology,
Yeah, no, I get that as well, because I think I saw one of your interviews with Lloyd where it was you were talking about the differences in the origins of the religions, or again, the groups. It's just simplifying it a bit. And how the Jehovah's Witnesses started as a true believing group. Like they believe what they were doing. Whether it's that now is definitely debatable, but at least that's the way it started, and that sort of what made it a true religion of sorts. Whereas Scientology did not have that start. The founder, you could argue, didn't have any belief in it himself, and just made it up for a following, and as a sort of cult personality to defraud people, basically. So they are very different, but it's in the way that Scientology's been cloaked that makes it so hard to distinguish these things from the outside, which I find very interesting.
Yeah, exactly. In the end, it's not a super important argument whether Scientology is or isn't a valid religion. Whether they deserve tax-exempt status is a very important argument. But the religious argument is kind of, it's already a done deal legally. There's nothing we can do to undo it. And so it's really kind of a semantics game at this point.
Well, that's it. And this is also going back to the Dubs about, what they were could be argued as a true believing religion, but what they are now as an organization, it would be easier to argue that they're not. They're more of, just a money-making scheme now. It's more about the real estate than anything else, and it's just trying to keep a following, to keep it looking legit.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So one of the big similarities I think that is really just blatantly obvious is the information control between them, the two groups. One of the main ones would be your internet access, for example. Is that something that, you're free and clear to go on the internet or watch any movie or, anything like that?
No, of course not. All destructive cults have this in common. Information control is one of the 4 points that all of these groups have in common. And it's an important one, because if you can control people's access to information, you can control what they do and don't know. And if you control what they do and don't know, or you control what it is that you're teaching them, or their education, then you control how they think, which is another aspect of this, is the thought control. So information control leads right to that. And it also, in a way, influences emotional control, which is one of the other 4 factors. So this information control is key. And in Scientology, it's the one thing all Scientologists in common, no matter who they are or where they are, the one information control point that is in common with them is, do not ever look at anything in any medium that is critical of Scientology. Doesn't matter where you're seeing it, how you're seeing it, whether it's somebody else telling it to you even, I don't want to hear it, right? Literally, they will cover their ears.
Yeah.
rather than listen to something you have to say that's critical of the church. That extends to controls that go into place for high-level, committed Sea Org members, which is the Sea organization, which is the core, I guess you could say, clergy of Scientology. That's the word they use. It's not a great analogy, but it works. That's part I was part of for 17 years, is the real high-level stuff. And at that level of Scientology, every aspect of your life is controlled by the church, because you're working 24/7 for the organization. So I did not have internet access. I had no internet, period, actually, until the very last couple of years when I was out and about and had to contact people and find them. So I needed to have skip tracing tools at my disposal. And so I had a limited degree of internet access. And even that was supposed to be very guarded and careful, and, no looking up anything about Scientology. So it's a very rigorous, kind of control system that they try to run.
Now, I know that it'd definitely be a different kind of setup for the organizations, but it's reminiscent somewhat to me of the Bethel, or if you've heard of Bethel for the Jehovah's Witnesses, where they will go and work, do their full-time thing. I think that's generally where they'll print out a lot of the literature and, factory workers.
Yes, I've heard of them, yeah.
And I just know that obviously because I've never been to Bethel, as far as I recall, the only people I've met who have been to Bethel were while I was still in, and I wouldn't take their word for a grain of shit. But,
Okay.
so I don't really know, all I can go off is a lot of
really
stories.
About that? I'm not quite sure I was clear about that.
But, yeah, I know that it couldn't be as bad as some of the stories that come out of the Sea Org, because I know that there are really, really horrific things that come out of that. But just the level of control in itself, like physical control even, your ability to go out, your freedom of relationships, your freedom of expressions, all of these things are so tightly controlled, and all you do is work for the organization. If you're paid not even minimum wage, it would be pittance,
That's right, $50 a week. It was good times. You eat what they feed you. You sleep where they tell you to, in dorms, dormitory style living mostly. Unless you get married, then you get a room, literally a room, not an apartment, a room. Common baths, common showers, uniforms, yes sir, no sir. I mean, this is it's a sort of paramilitary group that way. We had ranks and ratings and all kinds of fun stuff. So, I mean, I guess some people who are familiar with the structure or hierarchy of the Salvation Army might understand how you could have a civilian paramilitary group that has ranks and uniforms and, that kind of thing. That's how we worked as Sea Org members. And because Sea Org is C, not the letter C, but SEA, as in out on the ocean.
Out on the ocean.
And so it was kind of Navy-like, because Hubbard had been in the Navy, and he liked the Navy tradition, so he set up his own Navy, literally, and that's what the Sea Organization was.
Was it at one point, or if not, maybe the origin of that, where he was out on a boat, and that's where he had his Sea Org on the ship, and they were sailing around in international waters because he was in trouble or some shit. So that's all correct.
That's exactly right. You
I don't understand how people could get away with this. He's got such a ludicrous story, this guy. How does it happen?
Here's the thing about cult leaders, because you could say the same thing about Joseph Smith and these other, these guys, Jim Jones, you wonder, but what they do is they push the boundaries of civilization or society way beyond any level that anybody ever imagined they'd be pushed. So when you have somebody, it's like a shark swimming amongst the goldfish, and all the goldfish are like, well, we're all just nice goldfish here. And they don't really see this thing that's a shark, and it's swimming around. That's kind of what these guys are like. They're larger than life personalities. They're often charismatic. They attract followers. They want followers. In fact, it's kind of a codependent relationship. They need followers. because you can't have a cult leader without them. So, you know, you need the followers.
So much of your description there just reminded me of a certain orangutan in America. So many points.
Well, you know,
we don't need to go there.
Just,
I know. Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah,
we won't piss anyone off.
Maybe we could move right on.